On a sunny day in April 2024, I did a railway walk near Port Alberni. My starting point was at the McLean Mill National Historic Site, and I started here at the railway spur beside Smith Road. This video is mainly narrated slideshow style with a few video clips also. Here's the location, Vancouver Island on the coast of British Columbia, and the red circle is the Port Alberni area. This railway map shows the two subdivisions of the E&N Railway. The Victoria subdivision goes up the coast to Courtenay, but I'm on the Port Alberni subdivision, which goes from Parksville on the right side to Port Alberni on the left, and the red circle is the area of my hike. Here's the close-up area of my hike with the E&N Railway in black. The green is the spur to McLean Mill, and the blue is the system of trails that I end my hike with. There have been no trains on this part of the E&N's Port Alberni subdivision since early 2002, and no trains on the Mill Spur since 2018. So I'm doing a safe walk in railway history. So my starting point is the red circle, McLean Mill parking lot. And here's a look at my first segment from the mill parking lot down the Mill Spur to where it meets with the E&N Mainline just before mile 34. And then I continue on the E&N Mainline up to mile 33. Okay, so our starting point, as previously mentioned, and I'm about to cross the road and head down the Mill Spur. Here's what it looks like going downhill. It's actually a pretty steep grade heading down to the junction with the E&N main line. Cross a few bridges like this that are simple concrete girders. And soon I'm at the main line. I'm standing right beside the Mill Spur, main line on the right. Here's the switch as I'm looking back the other way, and I'm going to go straight on the main line to Smith Road. Here I am turning around, looking back at the junction. And soon I'm at Smith Road level crossing, which is milepost 33.3 on the Port Alberni subdivision. And if I continue a bit further up that and turn back looking at Smith Road, that's the view, and it gives you an idea of the condition of the track at that point. There's lots of overgrowth that continually happens. Here's the next section of my hike at mile 33 to just before the start of the big curve. This is essentially two long tangent segments with an obtuse angle between the two of them. This is a good time to mention that the grade in the direction that I'm walking is between 1.2 and 1.5% upgrade, and that's because we are gradually gaining elevation as we get closer to the Port Alberni summit. And to do this gradually for a railway, that's why the route goes the wrong way, northward as it leaves Port Alberni and then makes that sharp curve at the top of the map. There are some spectacular views on this first tangent, looking towards the mountains, southern Strathcona Provincial Park near Great Central Lake, seen here on the left. But it is generally just standard straight railway tangents. Here's one view where we're enclosed by trees, but then we break out when we look towards the Beaufort Slope. That's what we're going towards. Here's a better view of that and the surrounding trees. As we continue to make our way closer to the Beaufort Slope, on the left you can see what is an ATV trail or an old road joining beside. This is really close to where the Bainbridge siding and the various Bainbridge Lumber Company spurs were, near milepost 32. And here's another view where the ATV track crosses the railway with an informal crossing. There's a lot of those informal type crossings on this subdivision. That's what happens when it hasn't been used as a railway for over 23 years. Now it's time for the big curve shown in red at the top of this map. Well, I'm in the middle of the curve, and you can see what looks like recreation trails on both sides of the tracks. And here's where you can see them on both sides going down from grade level down below. And I'm going to explain about this in this video clip coming up. Oh, and here's a look at the log train trail off on the right. Okay, cue the video. Okay, looking railway east about mile 31.5. And down below there is the log train trail, formerly Alberni Pacific Lumber Log Hauling Road. And then before that, their railway. And it crossed under the E&N right here. And through there, continuing out towards Bainbridge. So this was originally a really long timber frame trestle with Alberni Pacific crossing underneath. And then most of it was filled in and it became a short trestle with the logging road crossing underneath. And then the last change was it was completely filled in and the log train trail just moves up, crosses there where there's a maple tree across the track and comes back down, and that's the recreation trail. Here we are at mile 31.5 E&N Port Alberni Subdivision. Okay, now let's talk about a piece of old rail seen here on the left side of the photo. There's a bit of rail on the side here, which I believe was used as rebar to hold in the fill, I think. The road and Alberni Pacific Lumber Railway before that would have crossed under here. Gone through there. And this is one of my favorite places. Looking railway west, take you to Port Alberni there. And looking railway east, take you to Parksville. So this is the curve where the big directional change is we've gone far out of Port Alberni to the geographic north. And now we're turning around, going back south as we slowly climb the Beaufort Slope, the western side of that, working our way eventually up to the Alberni summit. The next segment of the hike is from the middle of the curve to milepost 31. And the highlight for me was a new Forest Service road and crossing, shown here in yellow. This would have been put in either in late 2023 or early 2024. And I don't really know where the service road starts. I just know that it crosses the railway. At around mile 31.4, here's something that's new to me. Looks to be a resource road crossing. Oh yeah, it is a resource road. Big and wide. Here's the crossing. And continues up there with the culvert. This is from sometime in the last 5 months. Yeah, changes usually don't happen, except when they do. I was impressed by the official looking style of the crossing and the culvert. This is way different from those informal crossings that ATVers do, so I took a few photos. Okay, moving on. As I walked the railway towards milepost 31, shown here, that new resource road followed the railway for a short distance, and like I said, I never bothered to figure out where the road started or how far it followed the railway for. For the next mile, I continue to steadily gain elevation as I move through a variety of scenes. You can tell that I'm walking into the sun here. This is around mile 30.8, and years ago in the steam era, there was a water tank somewhere around here, but I've never seen any evidence of it, such as concrete foundations. But I keep on looking, and here I am looking back towards milepost 31. I'm about to turn a corner and start going into the sun again, but on the right hand side you'll see some grease cans, and these are a common thing about every mile or so, and there's usually a greasing mechanism that greases the wheels on the rail. Here I am making that curve, and this is where a trail comes up from the log train trail below. And the trail goes beside the railway. It's hard to see the rails here because they're overgrown, but the trail continues on for a short distance here. Then I get to a short section that had been repaired a few years ago by people from the Western Vancouver Island Industrial Heritage Society. Some logging had been done by a contractor, and the railway wasn't properly restored, and a washout caused problems down below, and so the society volunteers stepped in and made it correct. I break out into another logged area. This has some nice views of the mountains west of Port Alberni, and below me is the log train trail, and I'm close to where McLean Mill site is. And here I am at milepost 30, and the trestle is just around the corner in the distance out of sight, but I'll get there soon. There's a few other signs. On the right is the yellow speed sign going eastward, 10 miles an hour, and on the left side is the green triangle for when you're going westward, which is to resume speed. I'm thankful to Mr. Jim Sturgill Sr., who explained some of the slow order history for me. There was a permanent slow order of 10 miles per hour from milepost 12.7, that's the Cameron Lake Station sign, up to milepost 30, right here in this photo. Going westward here, you're allowed to resume speed up to the maximum of 20 miles per hour from here, milepost 30, to milepost 33, which is near Smith Road, where I started this video. This is what was in place at the end of the Rail America era, at the end of rail operations on this line. The trestle at mile 29.9, seen here in an autumn 2022 photo, is an indication of why we have a slow order of 10 miles per hour. Although that slow order applied to an entire section of track because of general track conditions and the mountainous terrain, still the trestle kind of tells you why. And here's where the trestle is on the map. And here is the west end of the trestle. A couple things to describe it. First of all, you'll notice the inner set of rails. We call that the Jordan rail, and it's a guardrail system so that if rail cars derail while they're on the trestle, they'll get caught between the two sets of rails and they won't fall off the structure into the ravine below. And you'll see this on almost all railway bridges and trestles. The other thing to note is the patchwork of various small pieces of lumber fastened to the deck parallel to the rails. And this is done by people who likely ride ATVs across the structure, and it's to bridge the gaps where the ties have disintegrated and are unsafe. Again, it's been over 23 years at this time of publishing this video since train activity happened here, so users like ATV riders are the real users of this trestle now. And they get the pieces of lumber from the various fire barrel platforms on this structure, gradually harvesting them one at a time, and you'll see evidence of that as I cross. Again, the era of fire barrels and trains on this trestle is long gone. Here's an idea of the softness of the disintegrating ties on the deck in this vertical view. There is a nice waterfall that flows underneath with a creek and then goes down to the log train trail. Quite beautiful, quite lovely in this scene of a falling apart trestle. Here is one of those fire barrel platforms. This is almost directly above the creek. This was in April 2024. Here's a January 2025 view in the right foreground, and you can see that all the bottom slats have been removed. And the same location now back again in April 2024, looking eastward along the structure. It is a lovely trestle in spite of the poor condition. Lovely setting, nice curve. Here's the next fire barrel platform on this side. I like this view because you can faintly see the 29.9 mileage stencil on the bottom of the platform. And soon I'm at the east end of the trestle looking back, and you can see a bit of the gully below. This is mainly a gully crossing with a creek at the west end. And that's it for this trestle for me on this visit. Here's the final map of this video, showing how I end up at McLean Mill after leaving the E&N just past the trestle. Mile 29.65 is the junction with the trail that connects the log train trail below up to the railway, and this is called the Trail to the Beauforts, and it continues further upslope to the Beaufort Range, and it's popular with mountain bikers. Here's a view where I'm going down on the right hand side of the photo. I normally go up this trail, and it's a tough go for me because it's so steep, but it's tricky going downhill. But yeah, it's a short but tough trail. But soon enough I'm down below at the log train trail, and I'm going to go off to the right and connect back to McLean Mill. On the way back to the mill, I walk past this grassy, marshy area, and soon I'm at the National Historic Site, walking through all these interesting scenes. And I'll end this video with this beautiful view here at McLean Mill National Historic Site. I really love this scene. The steam-powered sawmill, which used to do demonstrations, is in the middle background. Thanks very much for watching this. I really appreciate that.